There we go. Awesome. We are live. We're recording. I think, David, you have the first agenda item today?
I do. So what I have is basically ordering is a first class concept. This PR that somebody's proposed is looking at adding uh, basically ordering to one thing, which is fetch rel, so that they could have they could basically have the ties feature allow for fetch. So if you fetch 10 and the last one happens to have the same sort key, then you could go to 11 and 12 or whatever and return more items. Um, which is fine. The current implementation, well, the question really comes back to whether we just want to make fetch row work, or do we want to go through and add the first class support for ordering, which we talked about a little bit, or at least Jock talked about a little bit, because for instance, aggregate, you might want to know how things are ordered in order as a hint, um, or how things are ordered afterwards, or sort definitely specifies an ordering. Reads don't, but could have a hint about what order they're supposed to be in. So I think there's some capability there.
I thought
Uh,
we already had this as a, I guess it's sort of, okay, it is a little indirect, but under property maintenance, we do list, like for project, we list orderedness maintained if no window operations, extended to include projection fields if fields are direct references. If window operations are present, no orderedness is maintained. So like, is it different than that, or taking
well, I
that
mean,
out and making it like
I mean, I think that specifies that we're either maintaining the order but it doesn't necessarily, and then I guess sort specifically sets an order. Um, is it always, do we have, I mean, we don't have any information about what happened when a read happened.
I think a
Would be
read
one
could sort
case.
of assert that it has like it like a well, maybe an order could be requested in some readers. Because yeah, some readers will know that there is an ordering. It actually gets tricky because sometimes there's like an implicit ordering,
Mhm.
which is that the data is ordered, but not by any column.
It's a bit weird as well, because I think of ordering as a physical property as well as execution, and not necessarily like in plan space, because it can depend on your physical operators as well. So I think actually you actually have another PR out for getting rid of the ordering requirement on hash joins, because that does
Yeah,
restrict the implementation in ways that we may not want.
correct. Yeah,
It's where like it's an optimization in some cases that you can reuse the sort,
exactly.
but it's not generally the case that you want to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe I can speak a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So basically, I mean, ordering is, yeah, it is a physical property. But like in some case, it is actually the the boundary is blurry. Fetch is a great example because if you have a fetch with the ties, well, I'm logically, I mean, with ties, you are actually asking the fetch really deliver the result with respect to that order. So that's where this orderliness actually creeping into the logical space. But other than that, like it's not logical. I mean, for instance, a read, logically, yeah, I mean, you're reading the table. So I don't really care about the orderliness. But if you actually go into like specific implementation, well, okay, there may be some B-tree index. So yeah, it's ordered by the primary key. If it is like, I don't know, like heap, then yeah, there is actually order exist by record ID, but well, it's there's some order, but it's not actually ordered by anything. There's some implicit ordering. So I think it's really depending on the operator, and the the reason why I propose the fetch and embed the order there is basically logical fetch actually has the implication of the order. That is why I propose that PR. Um, Similarly, hash join, well, hash join is physical, but it and substrate, I believe it's trying to capture like as broad or generic thing, captures a generic thing. And this preserving ordering essentially really heavily depending on the implementation, how the operator is implemented, and just putting that requirements there, say officially, means we are actually requesting the implementer to, hey, if you're following Substrate, then like you should guarantee this property, which is I think it's pretty strict for the hash join. Yeah.
Does fetch, when you say with ties,
Mm-hmm.
do you define an ordering, or is it with ties according to whatever ordering existed before?
So that's where, I mean, it again, like this is also, yes, you could express that in terms of you require some explicit order below. I mean, for instance, with ties, like you cannot define a sane with ties without any sort of like ordering. So that's for sure. And every implementation today, like you must specify the order that's there. So in terms of your representation, yes, it is possible to you have like always some sort of like ordering, especially in the logical space. You have, let's say, you put explicit sort there, and then the fetch is, yeah, I mean, I'm relying on that sort delivering the order. Sure, that's possible, but um, but this is like my personal bias coming in. I think uh, it is better to like the logical operation if it basically logical operator itself just capture all the requirements like essentially self-contained. Uh, I think that's cleaner in a sense that because if you just separate these two, yeah, I mean, fetch relies on whatever things. Then basically you need to, there's like the dependency. You create the dependency between like the fetch operator and the sort. And you basically you have to carry over this like, I don't know, like this dependency. And like, yeah, I mean, what if there's something in between, like projects or something else? Um, then how are you going to validate it, or like those kind of things. So if you just have fetch like self-describe and you, okay, I mean, I am delivering this sort my result, and I am also doing the operations based with respect to this sort, that eliminates the dependency to the implicit sort requirements below in the logical space. So I think overall it's a much cleaner and clearer in terms of specification.
And it doesn't preclude the optimizer from, or like your execution engine from being like, oh, there's a fetch row on top of a sort. I know my input's already sorted on the with ties keys. I don't need to sort in the fetch row. Like you can still
Exactly.
optimally implement it, but the
Exactly.
node is
Yes.
self-contained.
Yeah.
Do we
So
have
it's just, yes, exactly. That's the idea. Well, yeah, when you implement it, you already have that sort order that the fetch is requiring, then you don't have to sort it again. Yeah.
do we have a top K relation? Can't remember if that was data fusion or substrate. It was like just a shorthand for order by plus fetch, but I wonder if maybe it would make like if we just add break ties to top K, then we don't have to worry about adding ordering to fetch.
This top K.
Don't think we have one. It's not a relation anyway.
Okay. I may have just been.
Maybe a window function?
Oh, top in operation. It's in the. Oh, it's listed as a physical relation. Okay.
Hmm.
Right. Okay. So that's the physical relation that combines sort and fetch to use a heap.
Hmm.
But it sounds similar. But I'm not opposed. Like I think I agree with what you were saying, which is it makes sense for the fetch to be self-contained, because then you don't have to worry about having like a inconsistent if some transformation does something weird to it.
Yeah.
Amusingly, this discussion is making me understand why Calcet combines, Calcet doesn't have a fetch rel, it has just the sort, and you can attach the limit to the sort, so they're always together. And it means that you don't get to like, oh, I have a fetch that might be moved away from my sort kind of problem. But I think if you want to keep them separate, I think having an explicit with ties on it makes sense. And yeah, I like that we're reusing the sort order, the sort field ordering. That also makes sense.
Yeah. The only thing is whether, I mean, in the PR I use like embedded message to capture this sort field. But well, technically that sort field, repeated sort field can be just inlined. And basically the existence of that sort field implies you're expecting the ties. But like I don't have a strong preference like which way should be. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we can look at that.
Yes.
But yeah, it feels more like a
It's cluttered. It feels like cluttered and
I think we can avoid bike sharing that for more than an hour, I think. And
Yeah.
probably not for today.
Mhm.
But no, I think that makes sense. And I think removing to your other PRs while removing the ordering guarantee on hash join makes sense. And if your engine wants to do that as an additional thing, you can.
Mhm.
But like we don't need to enforce it. And maybe eventually we have like a sorted hash join for combination, but it's a different thing.
In that case, do we need ordering guarantees on any of the logical operators?
For the hash join, or
No, like it makes sense to remove from the hash join, but right now we have one on project. Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean I'm from the world where project always preserve order. But well, for instance, I mean I can come up with an example. For instance, like you have a really complex projections, like heavily involving like machine learning inference and so on. So you could just parallelize it by like row batch or whatever. So you just do the parallelization. Well, at that point, you could break order. So in that sense, yeah, but then like yeah, do you?
I think it's sort of implied. Like I think if you don't do it, then you kind of have to add ordering to everything in a weird way, where I think most people assume, I think most plans assume that if you have like an order, then you have like a filter and a project on top, and then even a fetch without an order on it, like that you're outputting your processing rows in that order. Like actually fetch row right now relies on implicit ordering, or I guess the orderness property, where if you have like a fetch on top of a project and a filter, it's like yeah, that fetch is going to output the rows in the order it gets them. Or precisely,
Yeah.
there's a sort in between that and the fetch. Like the fetch could output those orders.
I mean, we're kind of arguing both sides here.
Yeah.
That ordering is purely physical, or I'm not really. I'm just like this is just feedback. I'm fine. You know, this go forward.
It's one of those weird
But-
things where it is physical, but also it's very convenient And actually, I think there's only three relations based on what we're looking at that preserve ordering right now. Like fetch without any ordering, filter, and project. And then everything else kind of says like, aggregate is like no ordinance guarantees, set operations, no guarantees, join, no guarantees. And like those three are the ones that like make the most sense. Like you don't expect them to be futzing with the input ordering.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I play devil's advocate on like several different angles here. So Xero, we could probably just mark it off as a weird designed engine. But it did not do parallelism in the conventional like partitions or splits style that Velox and Data Fusion use. So it handled parallelism by basically the scanner would emit batches and the fetch node was just a multi-threaded actor. It's not like you said, you could not fetch, project. You could make project parallel, and Acero did that by default. So there's actually no good way in Acero to have project maintain order other than turning off all threads. So there are.
So I guess you have to do like project and then order on top of it.
Yeah, you can do, there's some logic in there for sequencing. So like you can put a sequencing relation after the project, which is not quite as strict as it's not as expensive as a sort because it can only go as deep as the parallelism or something. It's been a long time since we wrote it, but we could call that like an oddball engine. It's just like, so these can be useful in some sense for that regard. But in another, I'll play devil's advocate the other way now, which is if you really wanted to parallelize an expensive projection, you could do that with multiple splits. And we already kind of have this notion of splits in a lot of engines.
And I might argue as well that the logical project is not mapped to the physical parallel project operation that you're talking about in Acero.
That's yeah, I agree. Yeah. So like a logical side, like a logical projects, like discussing ordering is kind of like pointless. But if you get to the physical space, then yeah, project can preserve whatever order below. And if the input is unordered, then yeah, I mean, you have no order, but if it is input is ordered, then yeah. And as well, like if you have like explicit parallelization, then there must be, I mean, you could express it in terms of as like split or that operation or shuffle, whatever. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm fine doing with the approach we're doing, but one alternative would be to put explicit hints about sorting and ordering, right? Or not ordering, saying, hey, this project normally would have a defined ordering, but when you come out of this, there's no ordering. If we had a hint that said they provided ordering, just like we provide hints for other performance kinds of guarantees, we maintain the logicalness of the relations, but still have the way for ordering information to be passed through to provide performance improvements.
Talk about this in the past about having like a Boolean flag on it for ordering on the relations or on the enhancements. I don't remember this. I feel like it's come up before.
I think an ordering hint would be super useful on input relations. If we don't want to just outright allow them to declare. Because there's sometimes, maybe this is not true. Would it ever be the case that the planner knows the ordering of the input data better than the execution engine itself? I'm thinking of like let's say we distribute the work to multiple plans. And so we push one plan down to like a storage layer, and then there's like a higher up it's doing all the filtering or whatever, and then we do the join at some other node that's like a execution or something, completely different engine, and they're just pulling in the input data over a socket.
Partitions, perhaps. If you had a partition data that was sorted by some particular key, that might be known, might not be known as well by the execution engine, or maybe just as well.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, like, having some kind of explicit hint on inputs. I mean, either hint or just a property on the read rel.
Yeah, explicitly on the read rel would be also an alternative. I was thinking of just making it generic because then you can apply it anywhere, but it seems like read rel is the place where it belongs. And it really are three levels there. This is sorted, this might be sorted, and this isn't sorted. Those are the three levels that you could
go deeper.
attack onto anything.
This is mostly sorted.
I guess that's true. That could also be useful information.
I think the hint is kind of a metadata saying like, hey, this is sorted out of for reasons beyond like the existing plan. Like the input itself is sorted, so we can guarantee sortedness. But I still think it makes sense to have it on the fetch rel itself to be like, hey, you're running this fetch rel, fetch data, assume or order this sort. If it's already sorted that way, that's fine. But we care about the alter, like with ties specifically for breaking ties. Like the hint is almost just like to the execution to be like, hey, you don't need to perform a sort to get this sort. You get it by default based on something like in your read rel potentially. But when you get to the fetch rel, it still cares about like, okay, no, it's not a hint at the fetch rel. The fetch rel has to be like, no, like this is actually a physical property that we want to enforce, that we're returning end results with ties at the end of this.
Okay.
You're turning the fetch into a top end, a logical top end.
Yeah. Actually, does top end have with ties?
No, it should. It doesn't. The physical one?
Where's the physical top end in like the spec?
I don't think it might not be in the protobuf. It's on the site.
Yeah, there's a number of the things that were defined in the documentation that never made it into reality.
Oh, top hyphen. Oh god, that's why I can't find it. I guess we should make the argument then that if we implement fetch rel with ties, that's effectively top end. But now it's logical. It's not saying that you have to do top end. You can do it any way that you want.
Yeah, like the physical top end is saying if you have to do an order by immediately followed by a fetch, whether or not there are ties, you can do it more efficiently because you can throw away results.
Oh, interesting. So I never actually look into the physical operator section, and okay. So does that mean like do we want to actually add the with ties to the top end operations?
Well, I think we're saying we want this to be logical. And also this particular physical operator doesn't exist in the protobuf. So
okay.
So I think modifying fetch rel is probably still the way to go.
Yes.
I think it's still the way to go. And I think if we could also say like you don't need physical top end, you can just have fetch rel top end. It's the same thing.
Yeah. We don't need to rename it because we want to avoid breaking changes for the sake of better names.
Okay.
Yeah, speaking of which. I mean, I think we can, unless we have more to say on it, I think we're all in broad agreement that adding ordering to fetch rel makes sense. We may at some point want to add a hint hints as well for ordering, but that's less about like explicit operations and more about optimizations for execution engines that may not be able to compute it themselves.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I'm thinking of is, we don't have to talk about this either. People that come from the data frame world. And so they want a read rel, and that's that implicit order I was talking about. But I remember now, I think we discussed this before, and it was kind of like whoever's designing that plan. I think what we need for the read rel is maybe just the ability to say include offsets or something like that, where it adds a column that represents the offset in the source, and then you can do all your ordering on that. But like we have people that are using pandas will do certain operations, and then they'll expect the output to be in the same order that their data frame was in before, even though they had no column that was actually sorted in that way.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's neither here nor there. I think that's more about the read rel, and that can be a separate issue.
Also, have anything they want to talk about? I have a short thing, but I think I can leave it till later if people have anything more pressing.
It's not pressing. I was just gonna take the temperature and see if there's any interest in, like, we do a lot of search, which ironically is really just a order by plus a fetch. And I was thinking about, like, do we need or do we want some kind of alias that is a search relation? Like they have special syntax in EG vector, but I'm wondering if maybe if we fix fetch to be more like top in, that's what we really need. Well, I guess the difference is the ordering. There's sort of an implicit project in there because you have a distance function, and then you order on that distance function, then you do top in, and then the whole thing, all three relations normally get replaced at the physical layer by some kind of index search operation or
Sorry,
approximate.
and what was the search relation equivalent to, Weston? It was
So it's project to add a distance column, and then order by on that distance column, and then a top in. Then a fetch to so normally you say, like, I want the 20 closest rows to the search string elephants. And so we'll calculate, okay, from a logical perspective, you can think of it as, okay, we're calculating the distance between the search string elephants and every single row. So there's like a projection that's happening there to calculate the distance, and then we're doing the ordering. But in the actual implementation, I guess the big thing is the ability to say that it's okay if the results are approximate. So maybe I will kind of prototype something as a logical operator.
So the other thing that you do with search is you might try to federate it in return. You might have multiple backends that you want to individually farm out some of the work, but I guess that's more physical. Yeah.
All right, I think just talking it through and explaining it made more sense in my head that it probably does deserve to be its own. So I might prototype something just because I feel like I haven't done anything useful for the project in a while.
you're doing stuff in data fusion that's useful.
I'll bring back what I know.
The more I feel like, actually, I'm noticing more people working on Substrate Java that aren't me and people I know, which is good. And I also see more people doing data fusion stuff, consumer stuff, which is also good. So people are starting to use it in ways that are unknown to me, which is good. It's not that there's now 2 people at Microsoft that are using it, so I guess free Ashwin, who I haven't seen in a while, but yeah. Actually, I guess speaking of getting the temperature, I need to double check if this is safe, but I thought I'd just maybe check the room if this is a good idea. Is that so we defined the join type in like 4 different places as the same enum, and it feels like we should be pulling that out.
We have been working on that because it wasn't this. They weren't the same enum.
Ah, I think they are now the
So
same.
so we now they are,
Hmm.
or close. They're close enough to being the same enum. So now it's closer to being able to actually do that next step. There may even be an issue.
Yeah, like I just want to. I have a item on my plate to like try changing that in our consumer and seeing if our producer and seeing if our consumer throws a fit. I believe it should be binary compatible. I think it might break the JSON, but yeah.
You may be able to do 3 out of 4 without breaking anything.
3 out of 4. Oh, all the physical ones.
Yeah, I think one of them is different numbering.
Oh, if one has different numbering, then I will be very sad. Maybe I'll have to do it as a proper migration. But okay, it sounds like this is actually something that people were looking at, so it's not completely out of left field to propose. So
Yep.
I will go verify. We'll try and verify this week that it doesn't in fact blow everything up.
Yeah, I think the main thing was to try to not change everything all at once. And I think it has been sufficient amount of time that the next step could occur.
Mhm.
Um,
That's it for agenda items at this point.
So let's see. So my current project, I am rewriting the text plan stuff in Rust. It's creating I am creating a separate. My previous approach, throwing everything into C++ and then trying to get everything to consume C++ was had issues, but mostly because of the all of the Google headers and things like that that were making things complex. And then it was difficult to get it into Substrate Python. So my current approach is to make it a separate library on its own. And that way, if you want the text plan loading stuff, you can load that separately. And so that is yeah. So it's running it as sort of a separate thing. Also playing a lot with AI to see how much I can get AI to do the conversion. So far, AI has managed to generate a huge amount of code, not a lot of it working. But I'm getting there. So we'll see. Maybe this time next meeting I'll have it working.
Yeah, if I could do in Data Fusion, like let plan equals then a big string dot into. That would be a nice for writing tests, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully. So yeah, it's Rust first with the AI wrote wrappers for C++, Python, Go. So it should hopefully would just work. But we'll see what the tricks are when I actually get as far as trying to actually use the packages.
Yeah, when you get there, definitely share with the Data Fusion community on like Discord or something.
Yeah, and then at that point I will want to actually make substrate dash text plan. Um,
Where's the text format specified again?
It's in the C++ code in the grammar. It's in source substrate text plan parser grammar. There's also some documentation on it. Did I actually put the documentation on the in core or not?
I thought some was in there, but there's examples too. Those were useful.
Yeah, I think there are
Or
examples.
C++.
in C++.
Been a while since I looked at it.
Yeah, I think we just put links to it in core, maybe.
Yeah, there definitely are examples in core, and there may be some, links to it. But yeah, make it top level. It will certainly be more usable, I hope.
And if it's a Rust library, I can probably get it to interrupt with all our Java infrastructure. I don't think I want it.
That's the one thing I didn't write a wrapper for, but yeah, it should work.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot more of a tractor problem for me than trying to get C++ to interrupt with our monoreefs.
Yeah, that's the main reason I decided to go this route. So yeah. Okay, good.
Serialization, text serialization, that's JSON.
The one thing I haven't decided whether is to make the detection of what format it is to expose that or not. Because the one thing that the current API it has is I load anything, whether it's in text or debug string or JSON string or binary, and then you can then save it as whatever. But then that means you have to load the plan and then convert the plan into your own proto representation, because you can't getting it across the language divide typically means you have to deserialize it and reserialize it, and so there's not much savings there. So I may not have a just load anything. I may just have this is the file type. If you want to ask it what the file type is, it'll tell you what the file type is, so you can use the right function in your own language. But that means you have to basically load the file twice, because you'd have once to figure out what the file type is, and another one to actually load it.
I feel like in practice, most places I would be using the text format are in tests where I don't necessarily care about that overhead, and in actual production, I'm sending protobufs around, and then I'm sure
and you should be, and to that matter, I think most of the time people should know what type their thing is. The only time you might want to have something that loads any type would be in a tool. Like, oh, I have a command line utility to convert to display a protobuf. Well, or to display a substrate plan, or do some operation on it or whatever. You don't really want to force somebody to have it in a particular type. I mean, you can, but. So that may be the only place. And we can I'll probably also just push it out because it's not the most important thing. Okay.
I think that's it for items. Can let everyone get 20 minutes back. I will say, actually, Young Troll, I know you had a PR out for Cube stuff, and I know that I was waiting on Jack, so I've kicked him. So hopefully he'll take a look at it and answer your question, or answer your request for clarification.
Yeah, I mean that one I have been like sitting on it. I promised to revise that PR, but I haven't yet.
Oh no, I think you were waiting on us.
No. I need to revise based on some feedback.
Oh, okay,
but,
great.
yeah, I have been
Okay, then we're good then.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. So like one just general like policy, but because like this is my like really the first time actual involvement in the open source project. So I see. So I guess there are some like minor typos in the public documentations. I can just fix it and then send a PR. I guess that's the process. I have some of the a little more deeper issues may require some discussions. For instance, I've been looking into this like user-defined types and the type variations. And I find it like there are like some ambiguities there. So I want to sort that out. Would it be better to start with the issue and then do discussion there, and then once we reach the consensus and then update the documents, or like what would be the suggested route?
If you're 99% sure what the answer is, you can send a PR. If it's not, then yeah, you probably want to start a discussion just so you don't do extra work.
Okay, okay.
I mean, if you want the most feedback
Mm-hmm.
quickest,
Mm-hmm.
then Slack is probably the way to go.
Slack. Okay.
It's not very.
If you file an issue, then link it in Slack. People will get the issue
I
more
see.
likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll install Slack then.
All right, yeah. Issue plus Slack might be good.
Okay, okay, okay. Is the Slack archived? I mean, the channel is archived, and can I look for the history?
I think we can only go back. It's the free Slack plan, so we're
Okay,
limited.
okay.
So we got 90 days or something.
90 days, that's short.
It is very short.
Actually, that being said, it might make sense to advocating for like make issue, post in Slack, and then go discuss it in GitHub issue and not in Slack if you can avoid it. I think I definitely use the Slack for like, I'll use the Slack sometimes more for like, does this make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, I'll go file an issue.
I see,
for
I
it.
see. Yeah,
The nice thing about
yeah.
sorry, GitHub is just that future people that have problems are curious about this. It's much more searchable than GitHub. Even if Slack was archived, no one jumps to Slack to search up like a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, modulo, I really don't like well, GitHub is Microsoft appeal, but anyway, I hate search in GitHub, but still better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to
this
increase
is
retention, we
recorded.
could
I shouldn't have
start it.
said that, but yeah, anyway.
I was gonna say, if you wanted to really increase the retention, we could start the Substrate Discord.
Substrate Discord, yeah.
I have like 3 different communication apps, I think, are for my work computer. Data Fusion uses the Discord.
I see.
Yeah, Discord is nice because you've got the ability to add bots and stuff to do things, which is always convenient.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean, you do that with Slack too, I guess it's true, but it feels less.
The only downside of Discord is I don't know what their like privacy policy is. I think they scan all messages and use them for who knows what. But for substrate discussion, it should be fine. I don't think we really care.
Reminded me to go look at the Slack, and I was like, oh, I do have another question that might be good to bring up in this discussion. It's about concat vcar specifically, where if you look at the signature for it, I think it's wrong, and it's wrong in a way that's hard to encode in a way that's, I'll show you what I mean. Like string. I'll make sure I only show the right screen. I should just link it in the Zoom link. Better. Cool. Yeah, in the Zoom chat. Specifically, like the signature for like concatenation of varchar says that the input arguments have like length L1 and the output argument has length L1. Which doesn't make sense if you're concatenating it, because it should have like length sum of L1 plus some amount of commas probably.
Well, you could want either. Because concat is really more like truncate if it gets beyond this length. I mean, if varchar is like truncate if it gets beyond this length. So I could see you wanting like, hey, this is my names table. Varchar is probably a bad idea just in general. But if you really wanted like, these are my names, I never want to store more than 64 characters for a name, just truncate if you get that long, and then you concat a bunch of things to make the name. You might still want it to truncate at 64.
Yeah. Okay, that actually does make sense there as well. If you treat it as, if you want unbounded concatenation, then make sure it's a text column or a string, like a string column specifically in Substrate. And if you want to bound it, use varchar. I think this has come up. I think calcite infers a new bound for concat that I guess is different from the Substrate one, and that happens a lot actually.
I think that makes a lot of sense also. Like I think there's plenty of use cases where you want concat to extend the bounds of your varchar. Like I think both make sense. But although in that case, I would say like a concat to string or something like that, where you just drop the.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
Yeah, and Snowflake, well, Snowflake uses varchar, but they always use like varchar, the max varchar everywhere. And then you apply the constraints when you put it on the table. So if you really wanted max 64, you would put the constraint when you put it on the table to prevent it from getting too big. I think DuckDB also is another one of those. The max varchars are essentially max length.
I feel like everyone just realized at some point that limiting the length of your text strings is a bad idea.
I mean, especially on input. I mean, but yeah, if you want to enforce a particular size of your text string, I mean, they're still limited though. I mean, they're whatever the 1.6 million. I'm not sure how many bytes that they have in their varchars, but there's still a max. It's just a really, really big one. I have not done any testing with max length varchars to see what their overflow behavior is.
I guess that would have to be something you have to specify, wouldn't it, in the spec to be able to. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I think that actually is it for me today. I don't think I have anything more I could add.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, thanks for your PR Central.
Yes,
welcome.
Thank you. I'll join next month as well.
Oh, it's every 2 weeks, not every month, but well, I guess next month is it. All right. Okay, cool. See you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.